When the pilot passed out at 30,000 feet, Flight 892 was doomed. 156 passengers screamed in terror. Then two 11-year-old twin girls in row 9 screamed, "We can fly." The cabin went silent. What happened next shocked the entire aviation world. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The sun was shining bright over Los Angeles International Airport. It was a normal Tuesday morning. Passengers were boarding Flight 892 to Seattle. Nobody knew this would become the most famous flight in history. In row 9, seats A and B, sat two identical twin girls. Their names were Lily and Rose Carter. They were both 11 years old. Lily had a small notebook filled with airplane drawings. Rose carried a Model F-16 fighter jet. Both girls wore matching blue jackets with small pilot wings pinned on them. "I hope we see Mount Rainier today," Lily said to her sister, looking out the window. Rose smiled. "Dad said the weather is perfect. We should see everything." Their father was Colonel David Carter. He was a fighter pilot instructor at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. For the past 6 years, he had been teaching his daughters everything about flying. Every weekend, they practiced in his home flight simulator. The girls knew more about airplanes than most adult pilots. As passengers settled in, flight attendant Maria walked down the aisle. She smiled at the twins. "Flying alone today, girls?" "Yes, ma'am," Lily answered politely. "We're visiting our grandmother in Seattle. We fly this route every month." "Well, you're very brave," Maria said. "I'll check on you during the flight." Up in the cockpit, Captain Robert Hayes was doing his pre-flight checks. He was 52 years old with over 20,000 hours of flying experience. Next to him sat First Officer Jennifer Brooks, a skilled pilot with 8 years of commercial flying. "All systems look good," Hayes said. "Should be an easy flight today." Brooks nodded. "Weather is clear all the way to Seattle. This will be a smooth one." But Captain Hayes didn't tell Brooks something important. His head had been hurting all morning. He felt dizzy. He thought it was just stress. He took some pain medicine and ignored it. This was a terrible mistake. Flight 892 pushed back from the gate at exactly 9:15 a.m. The Boeing 737 taxied to the runway. The engines roared to life. The plane raced down the runway and lifted into the blue California sky. "Positive rate, gear up," Brooks said, following standard procedures. "Gear up," Hayes confirmed. The plane climbed smoothly. 10,000 feet. 15,000 feet. 20,000 feet. Everything was normal. In row 9, Lily opened her notebook. She was reading about emergency procedures. Rose looked at the airplane systems diagram on her tablet. "Lily, do you remember how to read the attitude indicator?" Rose asked quietly. "Of course," Lily whispered. "The blue is sky, brown is ground. The little airplane symbol shows if you're level or turning." A businessman in row 8 turned around. He looked annoyed. "Girls, this isn't a classroom. Put those away." The twins looked at each other but said nothing. They continued studying quietly. The plane reached 30,000 feet. The seatbelt sign turned off. Passengers relaxed. Some read books. Others watched movies. A baby cried somewhere in the back. Everything seemed perfect. The flight was smooth. The sky was clear and blue. Then, 45 minutes into the flight, at exactly 30,000 feet, disaster struck. Captain Hayes suddenly grabbed his head. His face went white. "Jennifer, something's wrong," he gasped. His hands shook on the controls. "Rob? What is it?" Brooks turned to look at him. Hayes's eyes rolled back in his head. His body went stiff. His mouth opened but no sound came out. Then he collapsed forward onto the control panel. His full weight pushed against the controls. "Rob! Rob!" Brooks shouted. She shook his shoulder hard. No response. She checked his pulse. His heart was beating but very fast and wrong. He was completely unconscious. Brooks's training kicked in immediately. She grabbed the radio with shaking hands. "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Seattle Center, this is Flight 892. Medical emergency at 30,000 feet. Captain is unconscious. Requesting immediate." Before she could finish, the plane hit severe turbulence without warning. The aircraft shook violently like an angry beast. Hayes's unconscious body fell hard against the controls. His weight pushed the control column forward. The nose of the plane dipped down sharply. The airplane started to dive. Brooks tried desperately to pull Hayes off the controls, but he was too heavy. She couldn't fly the plane and move him at the same time. "Seattle Center, I need help now. Captain is on the controls. I can't move him. I can't." Another massive shake. Brooks's head hit the side window with a sickening crack. Blood ran down her face. Pain exploded in her skull. Everything went blurry and dark. She tried to stay conscious. She reached for the controls. But her vision faded to black. She collapsed in her seat. Both pilots were now unconscious at 30,000 feet. Nobody was flying the plane. In the cabin, passengers felt the sudden violent dive. Bags fell from overhead bins and crashed to the floor. Drinks spilled everywhere. Phones and tablets flew through the air. People screamed in terror. "What's happening?" someone yelled. "Oh God, we're falling," another passenger shouted. "Somebody help us," a woman screamed. The plane was now descending fast at 2,000 feet per minute. 29,500 feet. 29,000 feet. 28,500 feet. The dive continued. Maria, the flight attendant, felt the plane falling. Her heart pounded with fear. She ran toward the cockpit as fast as she could. She knocked hard on the door. "Captain Hayes. Is everything okay?" No answer. Only silence. She used her emergency key with trembling hands and opened the cockpit door. What she saw made her blood turn to ice. Both pilots were unconscious. Captain Hayes was slumped over the controls. First Officer Brooks was collapsed in her seat with blood running down her face. The airplane was diving. Warning alarms were screaming loud. Red lights were flashing everywhere like a nightmare. The altitude showed 28,000 feet and still falling fast. Maria's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the radio. "This is Flight 892. Both pilots are unconscious. I repeat, both pilots are down. The plane is falling. We need help now." Seattle Center's voice came back, filled with shock and fear. "Flight 892, confirm both pilots unconscious?" "Yes. Both of them. Nobody is flying the plane." Maria was crying now. Tears ran down her face. "What do I do? Please help us. Try to wake them up. Do CPR if you can. We're getting emergency instructions ready. Stay calm." But how could she stay calm? They were at 30,000 feet with no pilot. They were falling from the sky. Maria tried to shake Brooks awake. Nothing worked. The first officer's head just rolled to the side. She tried moving Hayes, but he was too heavy and stuck on the controls. His weight was making the plane dive faster. She couldn't move him. She couldn't wake them. She couldn't fly the plane. They were all going to die. Maria ran back to the cabin. Her face was white with pure terror. She grabbed the PA microphone. Her voice shook as she spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an emergency. If anyone on this plane has any flight experience, please identify yourself immediately. We need a pilot now. The cabin exploded in complete panic. People screamed. Children cried. Some passengers stood up and ran in the aisles. Others froze in their seats, unable to move from fear. A man in first class stood up, his face red with anger and fear. What do you mean you need a pilot? Where are the pilots? Both pilots are unconscious. Maria shouted back. Does anyone know how to fly? Silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody raised their hand. The plane continued falling. 27,500 feet. 27,000 feet. 26,500 feet. The dive was getting steeper. Maria tried again, her voice breaking with desperation. Please. If anyone has any aviation experience, even video games, please come forward. We have maybe 10 minutes before we crash. Still nothing. Just screaming and crying and praying. A businessman from row 8 stood up, his voice shaking. I've played flight simulator games on my computer. Maybe I can try. Yes. Please. Come with me. Maria grabbed his arm. But as they moved toward the cockpit, an elderly man shouted, playing video games isn't the same as flying. We're all going to die. Shut up, someone else yelled. Let him try. The businessman looked at the cockpit. He saw all the buttons and screens and lights. His face went pale. I don't know. This is too much. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't do this. He sat back down, shaking with fear. Nobody else volunteered. The plane kept falling. 26,000 feet. 25,500 feet. 25,000 feet. In row 9, Lily and Rose were holding hands tightly. They watched everything happening around them. People were screaming. Some were saying goodbye to their families on their phones. A mother nearby was hugging her children and crying. Lily looked at Rose. Rose looked at Lily. They both knew what they had to do. Lily squeezed her sister's hand. Rose, we have to help. But Dad said only help if nobody else can, Rose whispered back, her voice scared. Look around, Lily said. Nobody else can. Nobody is going to save us. We're the only ones who can fly. Rose looked around the cabin. She saw the terror. The crying. The fear. She saw people praying and saying goodbye. She looked at her sister and nodded. Okay. Let's do it. For Dad. For everyone. The twins stood up at the same time in row 9. Then, in voices loud and clear, they screamed at the top of their lungs. We can fly. The entire cabin went silent. Everyone turned to look at row 9. They saw two small girls, just 11 years old, standing in the aisle with determination on their faces. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then chaos erupted again. What? The businessman yelled. Those are just children, someone else shouted. Are you kidding me? Another voice screamed. We can fly this plane. Lily screamed again, even louder. Her voice cut through all the noise. My sister and I can fly. Maria rushed over to the girls. She knelt down to their eye level. Sweetie, please, this isn't a game. We need actual pilots. Rose stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. Our father is Colonel David Carter. He's an F-16 instructor at Nellis Air Force Base. He's been training us since we were 5 years old. We know how to fly. The businessman from row 8 laughed harshly. It was a cruel sound. Lady, You want to let children fly the plane? You want to trust our lives to two little girls? This is insane. Other passengers started arguing loudly. A college student shouted, "Let them try. What other choice do we have?" An older man in row 12 stood up, pointing at the twins. "I have grandchildren their age. They can barely use a computer. You want them to fly a Boeing 737? Sit down," a woman yelled at him. "My daughter is on this plane. If these girls can save us, let them try." The businessman turned to face the cabin. "Is everyone crazy? These are children. Little girls. They probably don't even know how to drive a car." Lily looked up at him with eyes that were calm and serious. She didn't show any fear. "Sir, can you fly a plane?" "Well, no, but—" "Then sit down," Lily said firmly. Her voice was strong. "Because we can." A mother holding a baby in row 15 spoke up. Her voice was shaking but determined. "I'm a teacher. I've taught hundreds of children. And I'm telling you right now, these girls are different. Look at their eyes. Listen to how they talk. They know what they're doing." Another passenger, a retired military officer, stood up from row 18. "I served 30 years in the Navy. I recognize that look. These girls have been trained. Real training. If their father is who they say he is, we should trust them." The businessman looked around. He saw the fear on everyone's faces. He saw parents holding their children. He saw people crying and praying. He slowly sat down, his face pale. She held up her notebook. "This is a Boeing 737-800. It has twin engines, 3 hydraulic systems, and a fly-by-wire control system. The autopilot can be engaged using the mode control panel above the pilot's seats. The aircraft uses an attitude director indicator to show pitch and roll. Do you know what any of that means?" The businessman stared at her with his mouth open. No words came out. Rose added, her voice urgent, "We're at 24,800 feet now and falling at over 2,000 feet per minute. In 6 minutes, we'll be at 12,000 feet. That's too low to recover safely. Every second we waste arguing, we lose more altitude." Maria stared at the twins in shock. These weren't ordinary children. They were speaking like professional pilots. "Ground control," Maria radioed, her voice shaking. "This is Flight 892. We have 2 passengers who claim flight training. They're just children, but they seem to know aircraft systems. What should I do?" There was a long, terrible pause. Then Seattle Center responded. "Flight 892, at this point, anyone with any training is your only option. We're contacting their father now. Colonel David Carter is being reached at Nellis Air Force Base." Maria looked at the twins. She made the hardest decision of her life. "Okay. Come with me. But your father needs to guide you through this." The girls moved quickly toward the cockpit. Passengers watched with a mixture of hope, fear, and disbelief. Some were crying. Others were praying harder. The elderly woman made the sign of the cross and whispered, "God help those little angels." A young mother held her children close. "Please let them save us. Please." When Lily and Rose entered the cockpit, they didn't hesitate. They immediately assessed everything with clear eyes. Rose checked the pilots. First Officer Brooks has a weak pulse. Captain Hayes's pulse is very weak. They need medical help, but we need to fly first. Lily was already studying the instrument panel like she had done it 1,000 times. Autopilot is disengaged. We're at 24,500 feet and still descending. Airspeed 340 knots. Heading 345 degrees. We're in a descending left turn. Maria stared at them in complete shock. How do you know all this?" Dad made us memorize every instrument, Lily said calmly. Rose, help me move Captain Hayes off the controls. Together with Maria, they carefully moved the captain's heavy body away from the controls. They laid him gently on the floor. Brooks remained unconscious in the first officer's seat, blood still on her face. Lily climbed into the captain's seat. She was so small her feet barely reached the rudder pedals. She adjusted the seat forward. Rose took the first officer position next to her. Both girls put their hands on the controls. They looked at each other and nodded. Then their father's voice came through the radio. It was shaking with emotion and fear. Lily? Rose? Is that really you, my angels? Hi, Daddy, Lily said. Her voice was calm but had tears in it. Both pilots are unconscious. We're descending through 24,200 feet at 340 knots. The plane is falling. What do we do first? There was a moment of silence. Colonel Carter was trying not to cry. Then his voice came back, steady and professional. Okay, my brave girls. Listen to me carefully. First, we need to level the aircraft and stop the descent. Lily, you're on primary controls. Rose, you monitor all instruments. Can you do this for me? Yes, sir, both girls said together, their voices strong. Good. Lily, find the autopilot engage button. It's a large white button marked A/P on the mode control panel directly above you. Do you see it? Lily looked up. I see it, Daddy. Press it now. Lily reached up with a small hand and pressed the button firmly. Immediately, the plane stopped descending. The nose came up. The aircraft leveled off at 24,000 feet. Autopilot engaged, Daddy. We're level now at 24,000 feet. In the cabin, passengers felt the plane stop falling. People screamed with joy. Some collapsed in their seats, crying with relief. Others clapped and cheered. They did it, someone shouted. The plane is level, another voice cried. Perfect, Angel. You did it perfectly, Colonel Carter said, his voice full of pride and emotion. Rose, I need you to check all engine instruments. Look at the ICA's display. Tell me what you see. Rose studied the screen carefully. Both engines showing green. N1 at 76%. N2 at 88%. Oil pressure normal. Temperature normal. Fuel flow normal. All hydraulic systems green. Excellent. Beautiful work, Rose. Now, both of you listen to me very carefully. We're going to bring you home to Seattle. You're going to land this airplane safely. Just like we practiced in the simulator. Do you understand? Yes, Daddy, Lily said. Her voice was steady now. We understand. We can do this. I know you can, Angel. I trained you for this. You're ready. Over the next 30 minutes, Colonel Carter guided his daughters through every step. His voice never wavered. He treated them like professional pilots, because that's exactly how he had trained them. Seattle Center cleared all other planes from the area. Every air traffic controller in the Pacific Northwest was listening to the radio. News helicopters were already flying towards Seattle-Tacoma Airport. The story was spreading across the country in real time. Lily, set the altitude to 18,000 feet in the altitude window and press the altitude select button, Colonel Carter instructed. Lily did it quickly. Descending to 18,000 feet. Rate of descent 1,500 feet per minute. Beautiful technique, Angel. Perfect. Rose, keep monitoring everything. All systems normal, Daddy. Everything is green. As they descended through 20,000 feet, Seattle Approach contacted them. The controller's voice was emotional. Flight 892, turn left heading 280. Descend and maintain 15,000 feet. You girls are doing an incredible job. Lily acknowledged professionally. Left turn heading 280, descending to 15,000 feet. Thank you, sir. She adjusted the autopilot settings. The plane turned smoothly to the new heading. Perfect execution, Angel, her father praised. You're flying like a pro. The passengers could see mountains below now. Some recognized Mount Rainier in the distance. They were getting closer to Seattle. Closer to home. Closer to safety. At 15,000 feet, Colonel Carter began preparing them for the hardest part. Girls, in a few minutes, we're going to configure for landing. That means extending flaps, lowering landing gear, and slowing down. This is what we practiced most. Are you ready? Ready, Daddy, they said together. I'm proud of you both. So proud. Seattle approach guided them closer. Flight 892, turn right heading 320. Descend to 10,000 feet. You're 35 miles from the airport. Emergency equipment is ready for you. Right turn 320, descending to 10,000, Lily confirmed. The airport was now clearly visible ahead through the cockpit windows. Emergency vehicles lined both sides of the runway. Ambulances, fire trucks, rescue teams. All waiting. All hoping. News helicopters circled nearby, filming everything. The whole world was watching now. Okay, girls. Time to slow down. Lily, pull the throttles back smoothly until the speed reads 250 knots. Lily carefully reduced power. The engines got quieter. The plane slowed down smoothly. Speed 250 knots, Daddy. Perfect. Now, extend flaps to position 5. The flap lever is on your right side. Lily found the lever and moved it. The plane shuddered slightly as the flaps deployed from the wings. Flaps 5 extended. Speed reducing to 230 knots, Rose called out, watching the instruments. Beautiful. Now, landing gear. Rose, this is your job. Find the landing gear lever. It looks like a small wheel. Rose found it on the center console. I see it, Daddy. Pull it down. Rose pulled the lever down with both small hands. A loud rumble filled the cockpit as the 3 landing gear extended from the belly of the plane. Gear down and locked. 3 green lights confirmed, Daddy, Rose reported. In the cabin, passengers heard the familiar sound of landing gear extending. It was the sound of hope. Some clapped. Others held hands and prayed harder. Maria stood in the aisle, watching the cockpit. Tears ran down her face. They're going to do it, she whispered. Those little angels are going to save us all. Flight 892, you're 15 miles out. Turn left heading 290. Descend to 5,000 feet. Reduce speed to 200 knots. Lily was working perfectly with Rose. Every instruction was followed exactly. They moved like a team that had trained together for years. Because they had. At 8 miles from the airport, Colonel Carter's voice became more serious. Angels, I need you to extend flaps to position 30. This will slow you down to landing speed. The flaps extended further. The plane slowed to 170 knots. It was now fully configured for landing. Flight 892, you're looking absolutely perfect on the approach, Seattle approach announced. The controller's voice was full of emotion. Turn left heading 260. Descend to 3,000 feet. You're cleared to land runway 16 right. All emergency equipment is standing by. Cleared to land runway 16 right, flight 892, Lily repeated calmly. Okay, my brave girls. This is the hardest part, Colonel Carter said. At 1,000 feet, you're going to disconnect the autopilot. You'll hand fly the final approach and landing. Lily, you can do this. I've watched you do it perfectly 1,000 times in the simulator. I'm ready, Daddy. I won't let anyone down. You could never let anyone down, Angel. You're already a hero. The runway grew larger and larger in the windscreen. The plane descended smoothly toward it. 2,000 feet. 1,500 feet. 1,200 feet. In the cabin, passengers were completely silent. Everyone was holding their breath. Parents held their children close. Strangers held hands with strangers. Everyone prayed in their own way. The businessman from row 8 whispered to himself, "Please God, let those girls do it. Please let them save us." The elderly woman clutched her rosary beads, moving her lips in silent prayer. The young mother kissed her baby's head over and over, tears streaming down her face. Maria stood at the cockpit door, watching the twins work. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Two small girls, their feet barely reaching the pedals, flying a massive commercial jet like trained professionals. It seemed impossible. But it was happening right in front of her eyes. Outside the aircraft, emergency crews watched through binoculars. Fire chiefs had never seen anything like this in their entire careers. News helicopters captured every moment. Millions of people around the world were now watching live on television, holding their breath together. In the tower, air traffic controllers stood frozen at their stations. Some had tears in their eyes. One controller whispered, "Come on, angels. You can do this. Bring it home." "Disconnect autopilot now, Lily," Colonel Carter said calmly. Lily pressed the autopilot disconnect button. The airplane was now completely under her manual control. It wobbled slightly, but she steadied it quickly with small movements. "Good. That wobble is normal. Feel the airplane. Let it talk to you. You're doing great. 800 feet. 160 knots. On glide path, Rose called out, her eyes never leaving the instruments. The ground rushed up to meet them. Lily's small hands were steady on the controls. Her face was calm and focused. "At 500 feet, start reducing power and raising the nose," Colonel Carter instructed. 500 feet, Rose announced. Lily pulled back the throttles slowly and eased the control column back slightly. The nose of the plane rose. 400 feet. 300 feet. 200 feet, Rose counted down. "Keep pulling back, Angel. Let it settle onto the runway. You're doing perfectly. 100 feet. 50 feet." The plane's main wheels touched the runway with the gentlest bump. Then the nose wheel came down softly. They were on the ground. "Spoilers up!" Colonel Carter shouted with joy. Rose pulled the speed brake lever hard. The spoilers deployed on the wings, helping slow the aircraft. Lily applied the brakes carefully, just as her father had taught her. The plane slowed down smoothly and steadily. "Beautiful landing, angels. Perfect. Now turn off at the first exit." Lily turned the plane carefully off the runway and brought it to a complete stop on the taxiway. "Flight 892 is safely on the ground," she announced into the radio. Her voice finally cracked with emotion. The cabin exploded with sound. People were crying, screaming with joy, hugging complete strangers. The businessman from row 8 had tears streaming down his face. He fell to his knees in the aisle, sobbing with relief. "Thank you," he kept saying over and over. "Thank you, girls. I'm sorry I doubted you. Thank you." The elderly woman was on her knees, praying and thanking God. She kissed her rosary and held it to her heart. "Angels," she whispered. "Real angels sent from heaven." The young mother was hugging her children and sobbing with relief. Her baby was crying too, but they were tears of joy now. "You saved my babies," she called out to the cockpit. "You saved my babies. The retired military officer stood at attention in the aisle and saluted toward the cockpit. His eyes were wet with tears. "Best pilots I've ever seen," he said to those around him. "Better than most colonels I served with." The college student who had been filming the whole thing on his phone couldn't stop crying. "I just watched 2 kids save 156 lives," he said to his camera. "I can't believe what I just saw. This is the most incredible thing I'll ever witness in my life." Passengers started chanting together. "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." The chant grew louder and louder until the entire cabin was shouting it together. People lined up in the aisle, waiting to hug the girls. Some brought them snacks and drinks. Others just wanted to touch their hands and say thank you. A man gave them his business card and said, "Anything you ever need, ever, you call me. I owe you my life." An elderly couple in their 80s came forward together. The husband was crying so hard he could barely speak. "We've been married 60 years, he said. "We were going to Seattle to see our great-grandchildren for the first time. Because of you girls, we'll get to hold them. Thank you. Thank you for giving us more time together. They saved us. Those little girls saved us all. Thank you. Thank you." Lily and Rose sat quietly together in the cockpit, holding hands. They were exhausted but calm. They looked at each other and smiled. No words were needed. They had done it together, just like they always did everything together. "Rose," Lily whispered. "Do you think we really just landed a plane?" Rose squeezed her sister's hand. "We did more than that. We saved everyone." "I was so scared," Lily admitted quietly. "When I saw both pilots unconscious, I thought we were all going to die." "Me too," Rose said. "But then I thought about Dad. About everything he taught us. And I knew we could do it. Because we had each other," Lily added. "Always," Rose agreed. Maria came back into the cockpit and knelt beside both girls. She hugged them so tightly they could barely breathe. "You know what you two are?" she asked, tears running down her face. "You're proof that miracles are real. You're proof that heroes can come in any size. You're the bravest people I've ever met in my entire life." Paramedics rushed onto the plane immediately. They took Captain Hayes and First Officer Brooks to the hospital on stretchers. Hayes had suffered a brain aneurysm but survived after emergency surgery. Brooks had a severe concussion but recovered fully after 3 weeks. Seattle Center made an announcement that was heard by every air traffic controller across America. "Ladies and gentlemen, Flight 892 has been successfully landed by 11-year-old Lily Carter with assistance from her twin sister Rose Carter. This is the youngest emergency landing in aviation history. These 2 girls just saved 156 lives at 30,000 feet. Controllers in towers across the country stood and applauded. Some cried. Everyone was in shock at what they had just witnessed. When the plane door opened, Colonel David Carter ran across the tarmac. He didn't walk. He ran as fast as he could. He climbed the stairs 3 at a time. His face was wet with tears. When he saw his daughters standing in the aisle, he dropped to his knees and hugged them both as tightly as he could. "My angels," he sobbed. "My brave, incredible angels. I'm so proud of you. So proud." Lily and Rose hugged their father back, crying now too. "We did exactly what you taught us, Daddy," Rose said through her tears. "You did more than that," he said, looking at them with tears running down his face. "You saved 156 lives. You're heroes. You're my heroes." The story spread across the entire world in minutes. Every news channel everywhere showed the footage of the 2 small girls climbing out of the cockpit. The headline was always the same. "Twin girls, age 11, save 156 lives, land commercial jet after pilots collapse at 30,000 feet." Lily and Rose became instant global celebrities. But when reporters asked them how they did it, they always gave the same humble answer. Our dad taught us that anyone can be a pilot if they learn and practice hard. Flying isn't about how tall you are or how old you are. It's about knowledge, staying calm, and never giving up when people need you. The Federal Aviation Administration gave both girls a special Medal of Honor. The President of the United States called them personally to thank them. The Smithsonian Museum asked to display Lily's notebook and Rose's F-16 model. Schools across America started teaching the story of Flight 892 as an example of courage and the importance of education. Captain Hayes, after recovering from surgery, met the girls personally at the hospital. With tears in his eyes, he hugged them both and said, "You two are better pilots than most people with 10,000 hours of experience. You saved my life and everyone else's. I will never, ever forget what you did. Thank you doesn't seem like enough." First Officer Brooks also thanked them when she recovered. "I train new pilots for the airline. None of them could have done what you did under that pressure. You're natural-born aviators. You're heroes." The 156 passengers of Flight 892 never forgot their angels from Row 9. They started a group called the 156 who lived and met every year on the anniversary of the flight. They always invited Lily and Rose, who they called the Angels of Row 9. Years later, both Lily and Rose became Air Force pilots, just like their father. They flew fighter jets with the same calm courage they showed that day. They became instructors themselves, teaching other young people that heroes can be any age, any size. The Boeing 737 that they saved was given a special designation. Painted near the cockpit door were two small pilot wings with the names Lily and Rose Carter, Sky Angels, Flight 892, Heroes. Flight 892 proved something important to the entire world. It proved that with proper training, dedication, and courage, even children can do extraordinary things. It proved that heroes don't need to be big or strong or old. They just need to be prepared, brave, and willing to act when nobody else can. And it proved that sometimes the smallest hands can perform the greatest saves. When disaster strikes at 30,000 feet, when both pilots are unconscious, when 156 people are falling from the sky with no hope, sometimes salvation comes from Row 9. Sometimes salvation comes in the form of two 11-year-old girls who scream, "We can fly." And then prove it by saving every single life on board. Lily and Rose Carter started that day as ordinary twins in Row 9. They ended it as legends who inspired millions of children around the world to dream of flying. They showed everyone that when you're falling from the sky at 30,000 feet, it doesn't matter who you are or how old you are. It only matters what you know, and whether you have the courage to use it when lives depend on you. This story is inspired by true events of young pilots and emergency landings throughout aviation history. The youngest person to ever land a plane in an emergency was 12 years old. This story reminds us that proper training and courage can enable anyone to become a hero, regardless of age. Knowledge and preparation can save lives. If this story inspired you, please comment where you're watching from, like, and subscribe for more incredible true stories of courage and heroism.